What are Popstar Aemeath's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to say is that if you're looking for a strong DPS to use your Lyney and Mornier with, then I believe that Aemeath is going to be the one for you. Kuro Games has officially shown off her gameplay footage now. We've obviously known what her animations look like for a while, but today we finally got the live stream, and we know a little bit more about her now. I believe that because Lyney and Mornier came out in 3.0, they are likely to end up being Aemeath's best teammates, and if you're going to be looking for their best possible use case, I believe that Aemeath is likely to be the one that is going to provide that. Considering that Aemeath's a major release, I am expecting her to be extremely strong, and if you're looking to complete the Toon Break core, then I believe that Aemeath is likely going to end up being your best bet. And because of how strong Toon Break has been recently, I would definitely suggest Aemeath in such a case. Now, I will say Kuro Games was quite vague, and they didn't really reveal anything in specific, so we are still going to have to wait for more information before we can really decipher whether she's truly a Toon Break DPS or not, but I do believe that it is highly likely that she is going to end up using those two very well at the very least, and if she has any specific Toon Break mechanics, we're only gonna unfortunately find that out closer to the time. I just feel like this is relevant and important to mention because they didn't really mention any specific Toon Break mechanics in relation to her, but I do still believe that it is highly likely that Mornier and Lyney are going to be her best teammates simply because they really prioritized releasing those two in 3.0 as opposed to their usual one support, one DPS structure. Another thing that I want to mention is that it is highly likely that she is going to end up being broken simply because she is a major release, and I personally believe that she is at the very least equivalent to a Sentinel Resonator in terms of importance and marketing. She even got her own cinematic short, etc, etc. So you get the point. She is a very, very big unit in terms of marketing, and because of this, I do believe that she is probably going to end up being one of the best DPSs in the game. Jinshi on release was extremely strong, Cardathea on release was extremely strong, I do not see Aemeath being any different, so if you want a character that is just guaranteed to be strong, and you did pull for Lyney and Mornier, then I think you're sorted, and this is definitely going to be the character for you. And I think that if you're looking to push the limit with a very powerful new character, this is going to be the right choice. And if you're looking to dump a bunch of Astrites into getting more investment into a specific character, I think Aemeath is definitely a safe choice, because generally speaking, investing sequences into DPS characters tends to be more worthwhile as opposed to investing into supports, unless it's somebody like Shorekeeper or Mornier that's a different case, but for the most part, investing into DPSs is more worth your time. And I do believe that if you've saved up a lot of corals or a lot of Astrites and you're looking to get sequences, Aemeath is probably going to be a good choice, because once again, I do expect her to become the new strongest, or at the very least, the new strongest fusion character. That's just something relevant to bring up for anybody that's wondering where they should invest their corals, or just for anybody that's looking to push limits. Another thing that I should mention is that she appears to have very dynamic gameplay, and I think this is worth mentioning because we quite literally don't have anything quite like Aemeath at the minute. Like, dude, she has very dynamic looking gameplay. She literally can switch forms, it looks absolutely nuts, and this does actually have a gameplay benefit outside of just being fun looking. It doesn't just look fun to use, it also means you're not gonna get hit as often. She moves around so much, to the point where if you have skill issue and you're worried about dodging, I honestly don't think dodging is something that's going to be particularly relevant on Aemeath, considering how freaking much she moves. Now, with that being said, you probably will still have to dodge here and there, but my point stands. It is very unlikely that you're going to take a ton of hits on this character, and I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up having a lot of iframes, but that's something that can only be tested whenever the character officially releases. But I wouldn't be surprised. In any case, I do think that just based on the gameplay footage that Kuro has shown off, she definitely does appear to be dynamic, she definitely does appear as if she's going to be able to avoid hits quite easily, and another gameplay benefit this has is that it is very likely that you are going to have a breeze fighting most bosses, because you're going to be able to chase them around very easily. You get the full package here. A character that appears as if they're not going to get hit that often, a character that appears to be fun to play, and of course, a character that's going to be able to chase around bosses a lot, and that to me matters quite a bit, because some of those bosses can be very annoying when it comes to their movements. Another thing that I should mention is that because she is a fusion character, this means that she is inherently going to have more teammate options than the average 5-star, simply because of Lupa's existence. Lupa allows basically any fusion characters to unlock quite a nice variety of teams. Mortefe Lupa, Lupa with Mornier, Lupa with Shorekeeper, you get the point. You can do a lot if you have Lupa. So because of that, she's actually going to have some alternative options. And considering that Kuro Games is literally running Lupa alongside Aemeath, I think that illustrates the point quite nicely. Kuro Games always knows what they're doing when it comes to reruns, and Linny plus Mornier have already ran in 3.0. They can't just run them again even if they wanted to. So what's the next best thing? Just run Lupa. Because genuinely, that character is just so good for fusion characters that yes, you're very likely going to be able to use her and still end up with a strong team simply because the character is just not inherently broken for fusion. So that alone is going to sort out your teammate options. And another thing that I should mention is that I believe it's highly unlikely that Aemeath requires both Linny and Mornier in order to be a good character. I'm pretty sure if you just have one or the other, that's going to be enough. And then if you don't have Linny, you can use Lupa there instead. If you don't have Mornier, you can use Shorekeeper there instead. You're going to be able to mix and match a bit, and that overall makes this character a little bit more versatile teams-wise compared to some of her 5 stars, and I think that's quite nice. I'm hard-pressed to call her accessible, because I don't believe there is any particular 4-star teammate that she's going to be able to use effectively, so I'm not going to say she's accessible, but I will at least say that she does have a decent amount of teammate variety for a 5-star character, and I think that's quite nice. I even think that something like Chang Li and Lupa could be a thing. Now I'll say that a lot of pressure is being put on Lupa here, and she is carrying this synergy so hard. She is a very large part as to why Aemeath does have such good teammate flexibility, but the main reason why I think that's fine is because if you missed out on Mornier and Linny, let's just say that you weren't there for the patch, you're a very new player that's coming along for Aemeath specifically, or perhaps you just lost your 50-50 on one or the other, that's fine and you still have a good viable option that you can pick up on Aemeath's release. Therefore, I think all around this is a good pro. Though, one thing I also want to say is that because she's a sword user, I believe that she is going to end up being able to use Emerald of Genesis quite nicely. It's the same rule of thumb when it comes to pistol users and their static mists. Generally speaking, you're able to use Emerald of Genesis on a majority of sword users, and it's pretty decent. Now, I will say it's gonna depend, we'll have to wait and see, but because that weapon is just kind of generally good for sword users, I can see Aemeath being pretty comfortable when it comes to her weapon options. And the reason that this is nice is because a lot of Wuthering Waves DPSs tend to be pretty pull or die when it comes to their weapons, but with Aemeath, I don't believe that this is going to be the case, and you're probably going to be able to pass on her signature weapon if you either don't have the Astrites for it, or if you're simply just looking to pick up the character and you don't really want to invest any more into her. Alternatively, you could be one of those people that needs a Lupa because you weren't able to get any of Aemeath's other teammates, in which case, that's also another thing you could do. Let's say you can't get her signature weapon because you had to go for Lupa instead, that's not a problem at all. I believe Emerald of Genesis is still going to be able to serve you just fine. So that's another pro that Aemeath has. I would say the only real flaw in regards to this character is simply the fact that she's not going to have any cheap teammates. The thing is, most of the teammates that could potentially work with her are 5 stars, and the thing is, I don't necessarily want to say that she's not versatile because she does have a decent amount of teams, especially if you pick up Lupa. She's gonna have options. But I wouldn't really want to call her accessible. Accessible to me is a character like Augusta, where yes, they do have a premium 5-star teammate that's really, really good for them, but you can use someone like Mortefi and feel like you're not really missing out all that much. But a reasonable upgrade still exists for people that are really dedicated to that particular character and they really want that particular upgrade. But in this case, yeah, I do think you're gonna have to pull a 5-star teammate. I'd say the DPS Yuno honestly has the same thing happening to her. Really versatile character, doesn't need her signature weapon in order to perform, however she basically only works with 5-star teammates. I wouldn't really call this a flaw of the characters, as much as I would just call it Kuro Games doesn't make 4 stars, or when they do make 4 stars, it's basically once in a blue moon. Buling was a good character to be fair, but we just don't get them frequently enough for there to be a large enough roster of 4-star characters for them to consistently synergize with. It's either they use basic attacks to use Sanhua, they use heavy attacks to use Mortefi, or yeah, that's basically it. You do get some niche cases, like how Yuan Wu is a good Jinchi teammate if you have nobody else for your Jinchi, sure, but generally speaking, that's kind of a rare situation to be in, and most of the time it's either Sanhua, Mortefi, or they just don't use a 4-star character. So, oh no, we yet again loop around back to the discussion of 4-star characters. Truly a tragedy. Loop around? Lupa? No way. Alright, anyways, you get the point. The character herself does have teammates, but to say that she has accessible teammates, I don't know about that so much. Granted, once Kuro Games reveals a bit more officially about her, and we know more about what type of damage she deals and how she does it, maybe there is actually going to be a good budget teammate for her, but as it currently stands, budget Aemeath just isn't really a thing. Now, I will say if you're a new player, don't be intimidated by this, because like I said, she is running with Lupa, and there are more than enough astrites for you to farm in order to get a working team for her. However, if you're someone that doesn't have a team for her, and you don't really have many sources of astrites, and you don't really feel like you can secure a Lupa, and you somehow didn't pull Linny or Mornier, then it's gonna be a little more tricky, and I would just stick to whatever fusions you currently have. But I feel like for most people, you're gonna have a team for her already, at least some kind of functioning team, and if you don't have some kind of functioning team, well, then you'll be able to get a functioning team by getting Lupa. A very exciting release all around. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Aemeath's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and her biggest pro is that she uses the Exo Strider in her ult, bro.